On 29th of September 2025, President Donald Trump unveiled a 20.21-point proposal aimed at ending the nearly 2-year Gaza war and laying out a route for post-war governance and reconstruction in Gaza. He announced it alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. The plan links an immediate ceasefire and the rapid return of hostages to a package of security, demilitarization, reconstruction, and governance measures for Gaza, which 8 nations publicly signaled support. Foreign ministers from Qatar, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt issued statements welcoming Trump's sincere efforts and said they were ready to engage constructively to finalize and implement an agreement. Several reports list that grouping as the coalition of Arab and Muslim states that publicly express support or constructive engagement. The plan, main elements, summary of the 2021 points, below are the core provisions reported across major outlets. The plan itself is detailed. This is a focused summary of the items that have drawn the most attention. Immediate ceasefire and hostage return. If both sides accept, hostilities would stop immediately and front lines be frozen. Within a short period, reported as 72 hours, all hostages, alive and deceased, would be returned. Demilitarization of Gaza. Hamas would be disarmed. Military infrastructure, weapons factories, tunnels, rocket facilities would be destroyed and monitored by independent observers. Hamas and other armed factions would have no role in governance. Transitional governance and International Board of Peace. The plan proposes an international transitional authority, widely reported as to be chaired or overseen by Trump, with named figures such as Tony Blair discussed in reporting, to lead Gaza's immediate administration while a technocratic committee manages day-to-day functions until Palestinians can resume local control under a reformed Palestinian Authority, PA. Reconstruction and economic measures. Rapid reconstruction supervised by the International Board, incentives such as a special economic zone, and international investment to rebuild housing, utilities, and infrastructure. The U.S. said reconstruction funding would be coordinated with regional partners rather than paid solely by Washington. Security architecture. New Palestinian police forces would be trained and deployed under international supervision. Israel, Egypt, and the international force would secure border areas. The plan envisages staged Israeli withdrawals to agreed lines as conditions are met, prisoner exchanges, and legal concessions. The proposal includes large prisoner releases on both sides as part of staged implementation. Reports detail releases of thousands of Palestinians detained since the war, and some life sentence prisoners. No forced displacement, official language, but relocation options mentioned. The plan's public text says people will not be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to go may do so. Earlier versions and some remarks by Trump had suggested relocating Gazans as part of a rebuild concept, language that sparked intense controversy. Why 8 nations backing matters? Getting public positive statements from a mix of regional players, Gulf states, UAE, Saudi Arabia, North African Levant states, Egypt, Jordan, and influential Muslim countries, Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, Qatar, gives the proposal diplomatic heft and a potential pool of political and financial partners for reconstruction and guarantees. Some of those governments have leverage over mediators and donors and can apply pressure on local actors to cooperate. International and domestic reactions, consensus and criticisms. Welcomes and cautious endorsement. Several Western and regional governments welcomed the U.S. initiative as a potential route to end the fighting and return hostages. Many emphasized that any settlement must lead to a 2-state framework and respect international law. Criticism and alarm. Human rights groups, some Palestinian representatives, and many analysts objected to elements of the plan, especially earlier comments interpreted as endorsing large-scale population movement or external control of Gaza, calling them tantamount to forced displacement or a denial of Palestinian self-determination. Questions were raised about feasibility, how to demilitarize a populated territory, who polices the process, how to ensure neutrality of international monitors, and about legal authority for a U.S.-led board to run Gaza. Hamas response. At the time of reporting, Hamas had not accepted the proposal. Its position has been described as examining the terms responsibly, some media, or rejecting aspects that preclude its political role. Implementation is explicitly conditioned on Hamas's agreement or a negotiated alternative. Israel domestic politics. Netanyahu publicly endorsed the plan, calling it a step toward security and reconstruction, but his coalition contains elements skeptical of concessions that could empower the PA or produce any long-term Palestinian state. That political tension in Israel affects how quickly or cleanly any deal could be implemented. Practical hurdles and legal political issues. 1. Hamas acceptance. The plan requires Hamas to disarm and cede governance, an outcome the group rejected in the past. Without Hamas buy-in, forced implementation would mean renewed or intensified conflict. 2. Who enforces demilitarization? Creating credible, impartial international monitors with access on the ground will be politically and operationally complex. 3. Sovereignty and legitimacy. A transitional international administration raises legal and legitimacy questions under international law and for Palestinian political claims. It must be framed so Palestinians see a route back to self-rule, not a permanent imposition. 4. Funding and reconstruction coordination. Even with regional support, the scale of rebuilding Gaza, housing, sanitation, power, hospitals is immense and will require sustained, transparent funding and security guarantees. What happens next? Diplomatic talks. The White House and regional foreign ministries will push follow-up diplomacy to get formal Israeli acceptance. Netanyahu has publicly welcomed it, and to test whether Hamas or other Palestinian actors can be brought into a negotiated settlement. Regional states that expressed support are expected to play roles in mediation and pledging reconstruction resources. Implementation thresholds. The plan spells out stage steps: ceasefire, hostage returns, demilitarization, withdrawal, reconstruction. Each step requires monitoring and political buy-in. Failure at any stage could collapse the package. Bottom line, the public backing of 8 Muslim and Arab nations gives President Trump's Gaza proposal diplomatic momentum and a potential regional coalition to help implement reconstruction and security measures. But the plan hinges on politically fraught, technically difficult conditions, chiefly Hamas's disarmament and acceptance, credible international oversight, and sufficient funding. And it has already drawn strong criticism about displacement risks and legitimacy. Whether the plan ends the fighting or deepens diplomatic and legal disputes will depend on the coming days and whether actors on the ground accept its terms.